everybody. We're here today to talk a little bit about our smarter process capabilities from IBM. And I'm delighted to be joined by Steve Nugent, the GM of Operations at HCF in Australia, and also by Neil Ward-Dutton, Chief Analyst from MWD. And we are really going to have the opportunity to trade off and talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of processes and how to improve them, and what's happening in the industry that is making it more challenging but a greater opportunity to improve the impact that business operations have through smarter processes. And just to set things going here, one of the things that we've seen, we've now done over 5,000 customer engagements with BPM and process and decision capabilities. And one of the common things we've found is in this new era of systems of interaction, we see real fundamental changes in how business models are being addressed, how the impact of social and mobile and cloud and big data are having on opportunities to really reinvent business processes that take them from inside a data center or inside the walls of an organization and really take them to a business in motion model where things are happening more in real time and more with a client, a patient, an employee, or a citizen's point of view. That we're really taking it from the individual on out rather than from some arbitrary business process on down. And I think a terrific example of that is the work that HCF has done on their ACE project in claims. And Steve, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the experiences you've had, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Yes, the ACE project was developed to automate our claims processing which was all paper-based. So we started the journey a long time ago, but we had to, because of the development, error rates in claims, the process had to change, and therefore we set about how we could do that and automate the process. To do that, we looked at the integration internally in the organisation, but two, what we had to do on the external scene for all the stakeholders that were in the marketplace. There was two things we had to do. The first was to look at the electronic messaging that goes from point A to point B. We had to standardise that within the Australian setting. So that was one area of development that we pursued and we achieved. So we have one railway gauge, if you like, now that transmits claims data between point A and point B. The intellectual property side of it was in the development of how we went about developing our ACE or automatic claims engine. And that is putting the smarts into a system, developing the business rules that a human would take to process a claim. All the little things they would look for when they would adjudicate a claim, how we would automate that. So we effectively have a straight through process where the claim is, one, electronically sent to us. We would receive that electronically. We would adjudicate it through the business rule, where then we would pay the claim and assess the claim all electronically. So at that stage, it was totally, completely done. We started with 0%, and we increased that to now that 91% of all our medical claims that we receive are totally processed automatically. 73% of all our insurer claims are processed electronically, and 73% of our hospital claims are also processed electronically. So they don't touch any human intervention. What that has enabled us to do is to focus on the customer service side, the analytics of that we require to look at fraud prevention, how we can do that, better health outcomes for our members, and reducing the error rates down so we know that there is bigger data, being able to analyse that as we went through. So it was a long journey, but I'm happy to say that we've reaped the rewards of it as we've gone through.
Now, if I recall, there were some very interesting opportunities that took place as a result of that claims processing work. If I remember correctly, you saw a pretty substantial growth in your market at the same time that this was taking place, but were able to do it very efficiently.
Yeah.
Is there more you can say about that?
Yeah, sure. Our growth as an organisation, from 2002, we were about 8% of the Australian market. We're currently at 12.5% of the Australian market, and we've been able to develop and grow without any increase in the numbers of staff that we've actually had to process those claims. So one is it helped us efficiently in productivity-wise to be able to process the claims, but also the staff have been able now to do better roles or roles in the organisation where they can add greater value in that whole process and through the analytics and how they go to process the claim, which has been a good journey, and I think something that has been pretty successful in that way as well.
And I think that's something that all of our customers are really wrestling with. How do they do more with less but still increase the level and quality of the service at the same time? And this whole notion of smarter process, I think, really has facilitated that. One more question. I my husband had to have surgery literally this week.
Right.
And the paperwork, the care was outstanding. The paperwork is just starting. If I remember correctly, though, you not only put in an automated claims process, but many of those claims are now being processed at the point of care, at the same time that the service is done. Is that right?
That's correct. So with our ancillary claims, and for those, that's if you go to a dentist or an optometrist, you take your membership card. Basically, you have the procedure done or the service that you have done. At the end of that treatment, basically the receptionist will swipe our card. The item number is entered. 25 seconds later, the claim is approved or declined, whatever you want to do, and the money is then transferred into that provider's account. On that, in the case of your husband, where he had a procedure at the hospital, again the same thing would apply through another process that we've developed, a hub. The claim is automatically transferred from the administration in the hospital. It goes to our Medicare Australia, who is one of the major provider. From there, they will endorse or pay their portion of it. Then that claim will come to us for our payment for the medical side, and from the hospital side, before they go into hospital, the patient has fully informed financial consent, so they know precisely what their out-of-pockets are, and we have a 24/7 membership eligibility check that the hospital can do, which is all online. They can check that. The customer knows straight away what their out-of-pocket is going to be, and then from there we will pay the claim, or they just transmit the claim through, and the hospital claim is paid virtually when we receive it, and from that the hospital is rewarded in lines with the agreements that we have with the hospitals.
And it certainly helps the hospital. It clearly provides more self-service and immediacy of treatment for the patient, and it certainly has saved you in terms of processing costs. Sounds like a win-win all around. So I'm looking forward to seeing the same thing more
at some point,
more prevalently here as well.
Well, the providers like it because their cash flow improves dramatically. And their bad debts in a lot of ways is reduced because they've instantaneous getting of the remittance of their reward, I suppose, from their services.
So Neil, have you seen similar activities like this in other industries or with other customers? What are you seeing in the market?
Well, there's kind of different variations depending on the industry, but there's a big picture I think at play here, which is that actually across many different industries we're seeing that organizations that are trying to lead their marketplaces are realizing that they can't differentiate sustainably on price, and they can't do it on product or service offer. They have to go beyond that and try and actually make themselves easier to do business with, and I know that was a feature that was very strong in your case. But we're seeing that organizations that really want to lead are having to think about the experience for their customer. And the real challenge though is we're seeing that organizations who are grappling with that seriously realize that it's not enough just to worry about the front end, if you like. They also have to tie it back into an increasingly complicated web of partners and suppliers. And that's, I think, shown very well in your example too. How do you do that at the same time? Because these things are actually pulling in opposite directions. The customer wants everything integrated
Right.
and a seamless experience. And at the same time, how do you coordinate the information flow effectively across maybe a whole industry? Doing that, what we're finding is that smart organizations realize that to do that effectively, you have to have a very, very clear technology strategy and a way to link up the operational piece with all the front-end sales and marketing pieces. It's no point just saying we're going to deal with marketing and sales and do the fluffy stuff, if you like. That's not enough by itself. It has to be linked into the operations. And we're seeing that in healthcare, seeing that in financial services and insurance, in retail, in telecoms and utilities, pretty much across the whole spectrum. And what's really fascinating from my point of view is that the people who seem to get this right have a very kind of collaborative approach at senior levels. They really work hard to create an environment internally where it's not just let's say maybe operations leading the charge, or certainly not IT by themselves. It's actually really a kind of collegiate thing. And if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of take that and bring that into conversation with you, Steve. How did that play out in your organization as you took, there's an amazing transformation to go from 0% automation to 91% in some cases. How did you drive that internally in terms of the way you brought different parts of your business together? I'm guessing it must have been quite a journey on that side.
It was. Well, it's through project management, and that's the first. We introduced the project basis in our organisation, and our organisation is very project based. And part of that was to have the project team that was from all lines of business. So there was the operational component of that. Patrick Schumann, our CIO, as far as he and I worked clearly together to what the objectives were collectively across the board, what we were setting out to achieve. It was also the lines of business, our benefits management part of the organisation. That was where the business rules come in, and what we need to put into the solution to enable us to have the automation program go through. All those people came together as one project team, and part of that project was all different work streams. The sponsor and the champions of the project, they were the ones who had to pull that together and coordinate that to bring it all together to enable us to have the final result. And what I suppose the real key is to be able to drive it to enable that to happen. And once you start seeing results and they can see that they're making a value contribution as to what is taking place, it starts to flow. And therefore they see the benefit of what they're trying. They're very clear on what the agenda is. They're very clear on what the vision is and what they're trying to achieve and what the organisation's trying to achieve. And with that, you start to drive the results and you get the implementation on time and in line with what we're trying to achieve with the project plan.
So, sorry.
I think one of the key things that you said that I'm seeing very, very frequently is the close collaboration between operations and the CIO, whether you call it the COO or the GM of operations and the IT organization. Neither one seems to be able to do it well themselves, but when that partnership really occurs and it gets the business and the technology underpinnings together, you can really get some pretty substantial results.
Well, that's true. I mean, it can't be an IT-led development. That's one thing that can't happen as an IT-led development, because the operational aspects of what you're trying to achieve have to be blended and married together to enable that to occur. So therefore it's a joint approach to how you have to do that, thinking along the lines of what the problems are that you're going to encounter along the way and what the solutions you will come up collectively between an IT solution that may be for a particular part of the project, but more importantly, a lot of the time it comes down to an operational change that has to be implemented to enable the outcome of that change to take place. So it's very important, and I think it's a good point, Marie, because it is the key, in my view, of making sure that success takes place. It can't be solo driven.
one of the things I'm going to ask Marie about in a second is the proposition that IBM brings to its clients. But before doing that, to tee that up, I'd love to understand, in doing this this transformation, did your teams have to learn a new way of working, or did they have to learn new skills to make this kind of transformation happen?
Not really. I think we were developing over a long time, thinking about how we would develop internally, and I think there was a clear understanding of what we were setting out to achieve, and that was through the automation of the claims processing. We started with ancillary claims, so the organisation started to see what we could do through an external vendor that started to automate, or was the hub to enable the claims to take place. Then they started to work internally. When we went to hospital claims and medical claims, the experience was there, how we went about that. And the hub we started to use as an industry-based hub to enable us to do the medical and hospital. Again, they worked collaboratively with the external environment plus what they did internally. So the solution became an industry-based solution,
right.
But the smarts at the back end was our IP, as I mentioned earlier, is how you build the rules engine or the business processing unit behind the scene to enable you to get the benefit and the processing of claims on the automated basis.
Right. Okay. It's very impressive that you managed to get all this done and kind of. It seems like you've addressed it very sensibly in a kind of incremental fashion, sort of growing layer by layer. I mean, one of the things I'd love to understand, because I'm guessing you talked a bit about smarter process. It's not just a technology product. It's probably not even 2 or 3 technology products, but there's other things that you're going to need to bring to clients to help them drive change going forward. Can you talk a bit about the other things that you bring to the table for clients who need different pieces?
Sure. And I think you touched on some of them. One is you do need a firm technology base that provides the integration of all the data sources, whether it's eligibility, whether it's claims, whether it's back office systems. A lot of what we've been talking about is this intersection now between systems of record and your real traditional back office capabilities, but bringing those to market in a more systems of engagement style. How we're extending some of those to mobile or to social, or having collaborative aspects as fundamental parts of the operation. All of that has to be integrated first. How do you get all that data to be able to surface the right information into a decision or a process or an operation? Then that whole process kind of platform is a critical element to have mobile and social built in, have standard SOA disciplines and integration and the capabilities that you would expect out of an enterprise class set of systems, but now how do you extend them for these new engagement models that put the patient first in this case? And then obviously one of the key things that is really more fundamentally about expertise and about really understanding what's the best practice in your industry.
Right.
You know, if you're going from 0 to 90+%, what are others doing? If the bar is really 40, you know, then you're way ahead of things. If you're actually facing an industry that is already undergoing a lot of change, and you mentioned some of them. Banking right now, you see complete transformations of things that were pretty traditional, straight through processes, check clearing. Now all of a sudden you can do that on your mobile phone with a completely different interaction model. How do you take some of the best practices that are taking place industry by industry and bring those assets and those methodologies and benchmark them in to say what would really drive competitive differentiation and yield success for you? So I think that combination, solid integration infrastructure, a broad set of capabilities that not only deal with traditional process and decision management and case management, but really provides operational intelligence and analytics on top of those processes, so you have headlights, so you have visibility to what's really happening. One of the other things that we're increasingly seeing is a move away from kind of traditional process modeling and more really really just trying to discover what is the organization doing? What is the baseline? And then how do we just continuously improve and refine that and take out effort and add value instead?
Yeah.
So I think those kinds of capabilities and what we're doing to bring those together in a more integrated fashion and our centers of excellence around smarter process and industry capability are some of the things that we're helping clients with in this regard.
Okay, fantastic. And one of the things I'd love to just dig into a little bit more deeply on your side, Steve, is this ability to act instantly, and you talked, you referred to that capability a little moment ago, in the way that you deal with claims and you help drive inefficiency out. Is it all about efficiency, or in terms of your ability to act, maybe not completely instantly, but as near as, has that had an effect principally from an internal efficiency perspective? Has it also had an effect from a customer satisfaction perspective, or is it a bit of both? Can you talk a bit about the effects that's had in terms of your business metrics?
Yeah, I think it's. I think the key to what you just asked is that it's not all about efficiency. It's also about the effectiveness of what you're putting in and what the processes you are putting in. Both go hand in hand, in my view, to be able to have the most efficient system. But if it's not effective in what it's doing and what it's producing down the line, it's not worth doing. From our point of view, we looked at, and I have to say one thing about, whilst we're concentrating on claims, part of the brief is that we looked at also how we process our revenue collection side of the business to make sure that is on an automated basis. We're looking at our sales processing, our service side. So overall, there's about 80% of all our now transactions are straight through processing that we have across the board. But claims is of course a big one, because it's a lot. That's where the cost associated with our insurance business, where we pay out a lot of money. So the efficiency around that is required. The efficiency across the organisation was extremely important as to understanding how we can take the data that we're achieving. We can do better analytics with that data, better health outcomes for our members. It all comes down to lower error rates, of processing error rates that take place. Again, rework. You're getting a better customer service aspect out of the whole process. And we are a customer-centric organisation. We do pride ourselves in our customer service. We have just won the national award for not-for-profit customer service last year, which was, thank you, a part of that. And it's all the amount of staff and what they pride themselves in, how they go about improving the service that they do for the customer in a very, very competitive market in the Australian setting. Which in Australia is a retail-based market, not necessarily a wholesale market.
Right, and you mentioned, I think, some figures that I was trying to do a bit of maths. It sounds like you've grown your market share by about 50%, depending on the measure you might use. So clearly, it's had a very significant effect in terms of your penetration.
It has. Well, we can grow our growth. We have grown in our new business. We've been one of the the leading fund of growing in terms of share slice of business and also market share over the last number of years. And that all comes about that we've been processing, the back end is right, and what we're doing from the customer service side. The products we're offering, and the benefits around that are all coming together in the business offering that we're doing to achieve the growth and to satisfy the members that we've got in the business.
Right. So, Marie, turning to kind of future. A minute ago you talked a bit about IBM's capabilities, and you touched on things around mobile and so on. Where do you see this impacting your clients over the coming year, 2 years? We've heard a great a great kind of business example where there's clearly a very strong tie between the infrastructure investment and a very clear set of business outcomes. How do you see the kind of innovations that you're bringing to market now? How do you see that playing out in the client situations you see unfolding at the moment?
Well, I think we've seen a lot of very interesting examples. They're in different industries, but with a similar effect. A great one is Odyssey Logistics, and they're a transportation company does logistics, but they don't own any of their infrastructure or their
Right.
fleet. And they are moving to expand in new geographic territories. In order to be able to do that effectively, they really mapped out both processes and decisions so that they could get at the quality metrics. You know, how did they actually measure their KPIs in terms of on-time delivery, and what level of service or SLA could they contribute, and how did they actually deal with all their vendors and their partners to fulfill that service in the way they wanted their brand to be known, but without necessarily owning all the pieces. And they were able to see very substantial improvements, over 300% improvement in how they were able to execute their processes, so they could actually get better revenue because they could set higher levels of service, and at the same time saw a 10% reduction in their error rates.
Yeah.
So that very similar metric where you're looking for more growth, you're looking for more service delivery capability, but at the same time you see improvements in some of the back office function, the error handling.
Yeah.
They're now looking at other areas of service that they can add on top of that. And one of the things that they're doing is now extending that more to mobile, so that they've got the information directly where it's needed by the logistics and shipping vendors that deliver that service for
Right.
them. I think we are also seeing a very interesting pattern. Again, mobile meets social, cloud, all of our capabilities have that component built in. But we're seeing more customers leverage cloud-based services directly. So one of our customers in Mexico is actually a micro lender and has done some very interesting work using BlueWorks Live, which is our SaaS delivered process discovery and collaboration software. And they did acquisitions and they did grow their business, and they really use that online capability to be able to collaborate with their business and their IT, another common theme, so they could create a single customer view of all of the market requirements that they were coming in with, and have everyone in the organization be able to collaborate that as a source of truth. And that's really facilitated some new offerings and some growth in their business. So I think the delivery mechanisms are evolving, where and how you're accessing that information, how much insight and analytics on top of the data can you derive and use almost as a dashboard to drive your operations, are some of the things that I think we're seeing more and more expansion on.
Right. The example you just gave about the logistics company that doesn't actually own stuff is fascinating, because it's something I see across industries. Actually, owning stuff is actually a really horrible thing to do. If you can avoid it, because the margins are terrible. You can only do it at a great scale, and it's a real nightmare. So I see more and more companies trying to get out of owning stuff, but of course that creates its own complications. And the mobile piece, I think, I'm guessing there could be some really interesting angles for you guys there, in terms of if you really want to have that instant impact. Is that something you guys are looking at?
Yes, it is.
Taking forward?
It's also part of our mobile around our service delivery.
Right.
We run we have a branch network, the retail network we run. So it's how we can apply that mobile technology in there to get away from the old transaction-based solutions that we had in the past, and how we can improve that by using mobile technology. So, you know, we're working through that process at the moment of how and what we can do within that space to be able to improve that service delivery around transactions online. And that's really not at the back office, it's really at the front office,
Right.
and how we can improve that. And that's always full of challenges, and how we can use that as well to improve the health outcomes for our members, and what we can do within those retail centres to make them different as a wellness centre, as opposed to a branch office as they are right now.
So that's you're actually enabling a different kind of proposition.
Yeah.
Actually. So which is fascinating, because it's a great response to, I guess, a marketplace where you have got a lot of cost competition and so on. If you're able to elevate the proposition and make it much more rounded, I guess that's a way to differentiate further and continue to drive the customer satisfaction.
At the moment, we're doing some items down that. We have, as an example, the Victor Chang Institute, who is a cardiology institute where their nurses come in and give our members a couple of tests, a BMI test. They look at their blood pressure and their cholesterol test as part of that process, where they're better health outcomes for the membership base. But
so preventative care instead of waiting until.
Yeah.
That's great.
Combines in with all the other preventative care.
Okay, fantastic. So, the just kind of almost rewinding it or unwinding the conversation a little bit. It's clear that, well, you know, Steve and his business have been on this journey for a while. It's clear that, you know, business process and also rules and decision management have been around for a while. So, what is it that's leading IBM to do this big push around smarter process now?
Sure.
You know, I know that you guys have been actively involved in this space in one form or another for a while.
Absolutely, and we're clearly, you know, a leader from a market share perspective, from some of the analysts, whether it's Gartner Magic Quadrant or Forrester Waves, in these individual spaces. And we have one of the largest centers of competency in terms of professional consulting and services that can help customers on this journey. But what we've really seen uniquely right now are some of the things that we talked about here today, that customers are seeing the impact of new technology and engagement models on the front end, the mobile, the social, the big data capabilities, delivery through the cloud, as fundamentally transforming their back office operations. And it's either a benefit, as you saw from HCF, or it's a threat. And if you're not getting out ahead of that and saying, how do I really take advantage of these new fundamental changes and reinvent my processes and my operations from a business perspective to make them smarter, to make it more instantaneous self-service, to make it insightful in terms of the data that it's really bringing together, and to really bring out that seamless integration of all the components, the IT and the business side, the payer and the provider side. That's what we're really seeing over and over again. And we really just wanted to get out with a point of view and a methodology that says, we've got the technology to help you do that. We've got skills that can help you do that. But you have to fundamentally make the decision to pick the process, pick the task, pick the challenge, you know, claims as a starting point, that you start seeing some of those quick wins and actually get the organization behind it. And if you do that, the results can really be impactful. And that's really why we think it's a perfect time, with all of the changes that are taking place, to treat this as an opportunity to drive change.
Fantastic. I think we're just about getting to the end of our time. So I don't know, Marie, if you wanted to just do a little bit of a close, a little wrap up?
Sure. I really just want to thank you so much, Steve, for joining us here today and for sharing your story. We're delighted to be a partner of yours and to really help with the journey you've been on. And Neil, some of the insights that we've seen from some of your work and what's happening in the industry really helped us to come out with what are some of the key tenets and the framework. So I hope any of you that are watching will join us on our smarter process journey and really engage with what can you do end to end to improve your business.